The idea today is just for us to talk a little bit how this is being impacting our lives, especially with these new things that's come to our homes, like personal assistants. We have everything done today by smartphones. The last statistic is saying that penetration of smartphones in US is the number 3 in terms of penetration in terms of smartphones. Number 1 is China, then India. Brazil is number 4. And for instance, in the business that we have, 60% of the search are done by smartphones today.
If you have been following the IT industry for very long, you may be aware that there's been a movement for the last 10 years or so to cloud-centered computing, aggregating all the computational requirements in large cloud data centers. You see other companies like, for example, Amazon and Google and Microsoft doing something very similar to create a cloud infrastructure to enable the centralization of this compute. And that's very, very powerful. It's allowed us to reduce the cost of operations, to make computing much more affordable for many people and lower the risks of getting into the kind of computational needs that people often have. But it also comes with a cost. It comes with the cost that there's about a quarter second to half a second of latency introduced in the distance between where humans, clients, enter in their information, perhaps in a mobile phone or in a car or some other device. The time that it takes to get from there up to the cloud, processed and returned, can easily exceed half a second to a second in round trip time. And that latency matters in many cases. If you are building an algorithm that is going to detect a child running across the street and you want to use it to activate the brakes on your car, half a second to a second might be too late to avoid hitting that child, especially if the connection is broken, if your car is offline. So bringing that analytic out onto the car is not just a nice to have, it's absolutely critical.
So where we have implemented AI is more in the experience that the person has with the concierge. So we've launched mobile apps so you can contact the concierge via mobile. We have chat capabilities so you can chat with the concierge. We even have texting capabilities. But our CRM system uses machine learning and historical data to kind of get a sense of what you like so that our concierge can make proactive recommendations so that it can make your trip a little bit more enjoyable. For example, like I am a travel junkie and I love to eat. So when you take a look at my credit card statement, it's all hotels, airlines, and restaurants. So, and predominantly I love steak and I love steak restaurants. So if I'm planning a trip to Brazil and I call the concierge to plan that trip, it'll show in the system, oh, Angelo loves steak restaurants, so it might recommend the top steak restaurants in Brazil so that the concierge can proactively make those recommendations.
So what happens with AI for Uber specifically is that our product has changed a lot, right? Uber is about 7 years old, and our product has changed a lot to do with AI, because AI has basically taught our product people how to better build the product, right? So back in the day, you would take your app, open up Uber, and ask, get a ride to a certain destination. That still happens today. But the way that Uber's thinking about mobility in general is very much in the fact that Uber, getting an Uber or getting a Lyft or getting a whatever other, like a rental car, whatever, is really, if it's not already, it's going to be very commoditized very fast, right? So we're thinking about it as a one-stop shop for everything you need to do in order to get from point A to point B. And that can be by bus, by subway, by bicycle, by those electric scooters, any way you want to do it. What the AI was going to learn from you is, how do you want to travel? What do you prioritize? Do you prioritize price? Do you prioritize speed? Do you prioritize comfort? Do you prioritize hybrid cars or electric vehicles? It doesn't matter. Like, they're going to try to learn. The app's going to try to learn from what you want to do best and try to cater to that liking.
Let me begin with just a little bit of backing us up and explaining what AI is. I'm sure you've all heard the term being used frequently. You probably have some perception of what you think that is, but let me just give you a little bit of a basic explanation of what AI is. AI kind of comes in three primary forms. The most fundamental form of AI is just simply a renaming of what we used to call machine learning and deep learning. Machine learning and deep learning are just algorithmic techniques for making predictions about a set of data. To be able to predict, for example, if you have a sequence of data, what the next value is going to be in that sequence. Or to look at the set of signals and use that to identify the pattern in that combination of signals. That's what AI is often referred to in its most basic form. So you'll hear references to algorithms. Those algorithms are largely just those machine learning and deep learning algorithms being applied to some kind of predictive effort. The second are recognition tasks. And you also heard that as well. You heard voice recognition. You'll also hear visual recognition or natural language recognition. This is applying machine learning and deep learning, but specifically to tasks that are about human experiences, human exposure to the things that we recognize in the world around us, the things that we hear, the things that we see, the things that we read about. Those are recognition tasks that humans are somewhat uniquely qualified to deal with. We've been, of course, conditioned to read, we've been conditioned to hear and understand and make sense of what we're reading. Those are basic recognition tasks. The third category is what we think of as deeper forms of reasoning. This is where we have to, in the human world, work out a problem. And humans are very adept at this. This is something that we are sort of, differentiate ourselves from the rest of the animal kingdom on, is our ability to look at a problem and resolve a pattern or a plan for how to solve that problem, to adapt that to even situations that we haven't seen before. Now, AI is in its infancy with respect to this dimension. AI has many decades to go before it's able to reason about a problem with the same depth of clarity and adaptability that human beings are able to do. So one of the things I'd like to point out is that AI is not about replicating the human mind. Even though what I just said may seem like it, because what we're doing is replicating certain tasks that humans are good at, that's actually not our goal. And the reason that's not our goal is really pretty basic, which is there's 7.2 billion human minds in the world today. And there's not a whole lot of economic value in continuing to replicate human minds in silicon. What AI is good at, though, is amplifying the human mind. And the thing to think about here is virtually any other tool that you can imagine that we have created in human society over the last 5,000 or 10,000 years, all the tools that we have had and gotten lasting value from are tools that have some means for amplifying our human strength, like shovels and hammers and hydraulics and all the things that we think of as being really useful tools that we like to invest in, that have been around for a long time, that continue to build and create, are like that because they had this amplifying effect on human beings, and it allowed us to do things that we couldn't do by ourselves as human beings. Our ability to construct cities and roads and cars and systems that get people around have only been made possible because we've had these tools to do things. If we had to do them with our bare hands, perhaps we could have done it, but it would have been really hard, and it would have taken us a long time to get there. And that's the same ideal that we have for AI as well, is that we should think about AI as a tool for amplifying and extending our human mind, for amplifying and doing things that we as human beings do, but perhaps could be done better if we had that as a tool to do that with. Or as a guest in the hotel, to have a more personal experience, then that is an interesting application of AI. And why did I say personal experience? Because oftentimes what it takes to provide a personal experience for a guest when what you're doing when you're doing it with just humans is overwhelming. The amount of time that it would take for an agent at a hotel to create a personal experience for their guests given that they've got 40,000 or 100,000 different guest experiences occurring a year at every hotel location, you simply couldn't do that. You couldn't scale enough people to give that kind of experience with any kind of economic efficiency. So this is an example where if we bring in an AI to pick up that distance, to do the work of personalization, you can actually create an experience that is very compelling, economically efficient, but actually elevates the brand because of the value that brings. And one way of thinking about that actually is in terms of what we call customer engagement. And we use this term a lot, right? You hear lots of brands talking about they want to do customer engagement, they want to engage their customers better. But unfortunately, most of us think of customer engagement as just simply spending more time with the customer, right? Having, being in their face a little bit more. But that's really not what customer engagement is about. Customer engagement is about developing a relationship of trust, right? When you are able to establish trustworthiness with your clients, when your clients believe that what you're trying to do is focus on their concerns, their interests, their priorities, then that's an opportunity to gain customer engagement. And that's something, again, that I think the AIs can do in ways that are difficult to do with just human resources.
When you start understanding a little bit of the dynamics of the way that, why people start using Uber, it's very, very interesting. And the reasons why they keep on using Uber is because AI fits in there in a way that's magical, right? So you start understanding, people start using Uber, they don't think about using Uber, they just do it. It's like, when you wake up and you turn your coffee machine on, it's something that happens naturally. So you think about a place you want to go, okay, I'm going to get an Uber, right? It's the most natural. And to get to that natural state of things, that's a lot of work that goes into the product to make it as seamless as possible. And then when you start to understand that people are dependent on your product or have become dependent on your product, that's where the big responsibility comes in, right?
Which I think highlights one of the key points. Will it replace human beings? There will be some disruption, but it's not so much about the AI replacing the human as much as it is about humans being able to offload certain tasks. But I think the bigger thing is what kinds of innovations will the business introduce now that they have this technology available to them, and that can be disruptive to the kinds of jobs that people have. Again, we talked about this in terms of Uber. Think about the disruption that has had on the delivery service business. It's been tremendous. It's a technology, they're using AI and other technologies. I know it's not just AI that you guys use, but the whole approach that Uber brought to the table disrupted that business, that whole industry, and it created not only displacement, but new opportunities as well. It created the opportunity, not just within that industry, but for the opportunities that it enabled for us as guests of Uber, for the passengers of Uber, to do things we couldn't do before. And so I think that disruptive effect can be both a negative, if we think of it strictly in the narrow terms of, all right, people losing jobs, or it can be a great thing if you think about it in terms of the new opportunities it opens up.
Quick one on your side, because about robotics, self-driven cars, VTOLs, etc. Uber is involved in a lot of that, and also Rob. Can we expect those kind of come to the stream when? And
so I think that we not only can, but we should expect it very soon. Certain areas faster than others, not because technology is faster in like New York than it is in São Paulo, but because certain regulations, right? So governments, city halls, they all make the laws and the ways that they regulate it is going to dictate how fast a certain technology and mobility technology gets in. So things like Rob mentioned about having algorithms that can instantly detect if a person goes into a car, that's very important. So unless a government is extremely confident and bought into that, they won't launch. They won't, because it's too risky for them if they set up a new regulation that backfires, right? So that's why they do it. You have certain areas that they love the innovative aspect of it. So you have, for example, San Francisco is usually a city where you can test out a lot of new technology. You have certain states in Latin America and countries that also are very adapted to technology. So there'll be less lenient. I'm sorry, less. They'll be more lenient to new regulations, to new ways of innovating in a test cohort than it is than anywhere else. Big cities like São Paulo, New York, they're usually more strict, right? So you have to prove it out over and over again until they say, okay, let's do it. So answering your question, I think it'll be soon, more sooner in some areas than others because of everything.